You cannot connect with other people if you're not connected with yourself and you don't know who you are. And part of knowing who you are is knowing what you want out of life. The problem is, a lot of us not only don't know what we want in life, we have convinced ourselves that it is wrong or selfish to want in life. But this posture, instead of creating healthy relationships because we've become so unselfish, usually creates a lot of problems in our relationships. Hi everybody, I'm Greg from Heart Tools, where we make it simple to build great relationships. And wanting well, that is wanting things strongly, wanting things deeply, owning what you want and wanting in healthy ways is one of the best gifts that you can give to yourself and to your relationships. But I have noticed that a lot of us really struggle with wanting well. And quite often when I do this session live, when we're talking about knowing yourself so you can connect with others, and I ask people to raise their hand and talk about what they want, I am surprised by how many people have no idea what they want in life. And not only do they not know what they want, a lot of times there's this real uneasiness, like there's this moral barrier against wanting things because that will make them a selfish person. And wouldn't it be better to be unselfish? Here's the problem. You cannot stop wanting things. That's part of how God designed life to work, is for you to want things and then to go out and try to get what you want. And if you don't know what you want, and if you don't own your wants, your wanting is going to come out in ways that's going to harm your relationships. Let me give you some examples. Sometimes when we don't allow ourselves to want things, instead of expressing them as wants in our relationship, we express them as someone else's character defect. For example, perhaps you want your spouse to plan a date night and to do all the planning and the prep, and you just show up because that was so romantic when you were dating or early in your marriage, and it hasn't happened for a long time. And instead of wanting that and saying, hey, I would love for you to do this sometime, you express it this way. Why don't you ever plan a date night anymore, right? And so I'm not going to express a want that I have because I'm unselfish. Instead, I'm going to try to convince you of how bad you are so that you'll do the thing that I want. And instead of inviting the other person to meet our wants, we end up attacking them. So that doesn't work very well. Another way we can do this is by appealing to some kind of outside standard of what is good and right in life. And so instead of expressing what I want, I may say something like, well, don't you think a loving person would? Or if you were a true friend, don't you think you would want to? Or don't you think a child who appreciates all his mother has done for him would do X, Y, and Z, right? And so instead of inviting people to help us get what we want out of life, we're trying to convince them that they're not living up to the standard of what is right. Again, they have a problem they need to solve. Another way we could do this that puts a spiritual spin on it is to say something like, I think God wants us to. So instead of expressing what you want just simply as your want, is I really, I don't have to do this. I don't need this, but I really think it's the right thing because God wants us to do it, which is a lot of pressure to put on someone and kind of gives the impression that you're using God as a bludgeon to beat them into submission, or that you and God are ganging up on them. Another way that our wants can come out sideways to the detriment of our relationships is we express our wants as needs, right? And so instead of saying, hey, I really would love it, I want you to plan a date night for us, we'll say, I need for you to plan a date night. It's not that I want it, it's that I need it. And there's a huge difference, because with wants, someone can say yes or no, but needs have to be met. So here's what you can do to keep your relationships strong and healthy, and that is to know what you want and to own that you want them and to ask for the things that you want, but ask in a way that allows the other person the freedom to say yes or to say no. And then along with that, be ready to grieve if someone says no, because at the bottom of a lot of this that we're talking about, I think, is an attempt to escape having to grieve in life. So if I don't want anything, then I don't have to feel sad when I don't get it. If I don't ask for what I want, then I don't have to grieve if I don't get what I want. Now, how much you have to grieve obviously will depend on how much you wanted this thing or how much you wanted this thing with this specific person. But so much of having the life you want to have will depend upon your capacity to know what you want and ask for what you want, and your capacity to grieve when you don't get it without getting stuck so you can keep moving forward. We all know you can't have everything that you want in life, but you have to know what you want out of life, and you have to own what you want in life, and you have to ask for what you want in life. If you are an adult, it is no one else's job to figure out what you want out of life, and it's no one else's job to ask for the things that you want out of life. That's your job. Now, in upcoming videos, we are going to be exploring how to know all the things that you want in life, and we're going to talk about the difference between talking about your wants so that people know who you are and asking for what you want and inviting people to help you meet what you want in life. But for this video, I would invite you to practice these simple steps. First, ask yourself, how comfortable am I with wanting well? Are you able to want things strongly and deeply? Are you able to want things so much that if you don't get them, you're going to feel sad about that? Or is there some sort of hitch in you that says wanting is dangerous or wanting is selfish? The second step is to ask yourself if you've fallen into any of these traps of expressing your wants indirectly, which always tends to take someone else's power away and tends to push them away, rather than inviting them to help you get your wants met. And if you have, take one of those sentences that you've used to express your wants indirectly and rephrase it and rewrite it as a simple I want statement that allows the other person to say yes or no, and see what a difference that makes. Simple steps. Practice, practice, practice. That's what Heart Tools is all about.